Hello, everyone, and welcome to Butterfly Pavilion's very first Invertebrate Investigation. This is a new free virtual series that we are offering to explore the amazing world of invertebrates. So, Butterfly Pavilion, if you're not familiar with us, we are an invertebrate zoo. We are located in Westminster, Colorado. My map will come up. So we are located right here in Westminster, Colorado. We are just north of Denver, if you're familiar with the area. And like I said, we are an invertebrate zoo. So an invertebrate zoo, what is an invertebrate? They are animals without backbones. So invertebrates actually make up about 97% of all animal life on Earth. And they can be found everywhere. They can be found in mountains, in deserts, in oceans, in rainforests, and they can probably even be found right in your own backyard. So today we are going to talk a little bit about invertebrate biodiversity. But first, let's figure out what biodiversity is. So biodiversity, for my folks in the chat, you're welcome to drop your answers in the Q&A if you know, if you want to. But let's break down this word. So biodiversity, if we break it into two, so bio and diversity. So bio means life and diversity is variety. So biodiversity then is the variety of life forms that can be found in a habitat or an ecosystem. So ecologists and scientists, we love to talk about biodiversity and how important it is. And the reason it's important is it gives us an indication of how healthy an ecosystem is. So if I'm looking at the biodiversity of Colorado, where I am at, we would expect to see lots of mammals. So things like squirrels and rabbits and prairie dogs, coyotes, raccoons. These are all native animals that we would expect to see here. And so if we're seeing those animals, that's great. We're also going to see a wide variety of bird biodiversity. So we're going to have everything from large birds of prey down to tiny little songbirds. And again, if we're seeing all of those different types of birds, that means that our ecosystem is probably in pretty good shape. And then when we talk about insect or invertebrate biodiversity, so again, they're making up 97% of all life on Earth. So the majority of animals that if I walk outside and go looking for them, the majority of them are going to be invertebrates. They may not be as big or as flashy as, say, birds or mammals, but they are going to be there. And then if we narrow it down into an order, we're going to look at insects. So what makes an insect an insect? Again, if you would like to drop your answers in the chat, you can. But all insects, no matter what they look like, are going to follow the same basic body plan. So I've got a beetle up on the screen here, and we can see our beetle has 6 legs. So all of our insects, no matter what they look like, they will always have 6 legs. Now those legs could, depending on the type of insect it is, may look very, very different. But here on our beetle, they all look pretty much the same, and they're going to be 6 legs. We are also always going to have 2 antennae. So our beetle here, it's got pretty long antennae. They're pretty visible, but again, depending on the insect, they may be super short or they may be feathery, like a butterfly or a moth, or they can be like our friend here on the screen, really, really long. Insects will also always have 3 main body segments. So here on our beetle, we can see them pretty clearly. We've got our head. That one's pretty obvious, right? That's where the eyes are, where the mouth parts are, where their antennas are attached. And then we also have the thorax, which is kind of like their chest. That's going to be where their legs attach, and if they have wings, where their wings attach. And that's usually a fairly small part of their body. And then this large section right here is the abdomen. So that is where the majority of the insect's organs are going to be located. So kind of like our midsection. And even though insects follow kind of the same basic body plan, 6 legs, 2 antennae, 3 body segments, they can look very, very different. Insects are some of the most biodiverse animals on the planet. There are approximately 1 million described species. So when we say described species, we mean ones that have been identified and named. But scientists estimate that there may be over 5 million species or even more on the planet that so that would be about 4 million that we haven't discovered yet, or we don't have enough information about to give them a proper scientific name. So that is one of my favorite things about studying insects is there is always room for discovery and learning, discovering new insects every year. But yeah, if we look at some of the insects I have here on the screen, they all look very, very different. We have a wide variety of colors, of shapes, of sizes. So from our little teeny ladybug with its gorgeous, cute little spots to our praying mantis with its highly specialized front legs used for hunting to our fuzzy little bumblebee right here. So we're going to take some time. We're going to go through some of my favorite insects. I've picked them because they have super interesting adaptations and makes them, in some cases, look a little weird, but also cute. So we're going to start off with a butterfly. So now everyone's probably seen a butterfly, right? We know what it looks like, most of them. They look like this monarch right here. We've got our big wings, our little body, and our two antennae. But the butterfly we're going to talk about up first has kind of an interesting body part. So this is the American snout butterfly. And if you're looking at it, you might notice how it gets its name, that long snout right there. Now, despite its name, that is not its nose. It's actually elongated mouth parts. So insects use their antenna for smell. So our little butterfly right here is going to use these antennae to help it smell, so smelling flowers or potentially smelling other butterflies. And so this little long nose that it's got is actually a part of its mouth. Now we think that its long snout-like appendage, it helps it camouflage. So if you look at the colors, especially with its wings closed, it's fairly dull. It's going to be, blend in really, really well with dead leaves and on plants. And so this extra little appendage just helps it blend in even better. It looks like the stem of a leaf. And so when it's sitting in the plants, it's going to camouflage perfectly in there. And that's going to help it avoid getting eaten by predators. When we open up their wings, they do have a little more color up on the inside part of their wings. They've got some orange and some spots, but again, it can close those wings right up and just disappear right into the foliage. Now, these butterflies can be found in the southern parts of the United States. They're very common in Texas and Missouri, and they are actually undergoing their late summer migration right about now. So if you are from South Texas, or if you're visiting the area, you may see quite a few of these. They don't tend to migrate to a specific region. They're just migrating looking for more food. But it's really funny when they start their migrations, they are referred to as snout breaks. So instead of an outbreak of butterflies, they are snout breaks of these fun little butterflies. And they can migrate in quite large swarms, in some cases being described as like even covering the sky or looking like a giant cloud of butterflies. And so that should be happening in South Texas, in kind of Southeast Midwest area right about now as they undergo their migration to find some more food. So these are very unusual little butterflies. This is the only species of snout butterfly that we have here in North America. But I think it's really fun that we have such interesting little creatures right here in the United States. All right, up next, we are going to go across the planet to Australia. Let's see what we've got up next. So this is a Macleay's spectre stick insect. They also have a couple other common names. They're known as spiny leaf insects, giant prickly sticks, or Australian walking sticks. But no matter what you're calling them, they are very, very interesting animals because they have got some top-notch camouflage. So these are some photos actually from Butterfly Pavilion with our Macleay spectre stick insects we have right here. And in this photo on the right, there's a bunch of bramble, which is their favorite food, and there are a bunch of baby stick insects in there. So I want you to take a look, see if you can spot some of them. If you want to drop in the chat where you see them, please do. I'll give y'all just a couple seconds to see if you can spot some of those babies, and then I'll highlight them. Though I will admit, I couldn't find all of them either. I was struggling a little bit with that too. All right, so let's see if we can find some of these baby sticks. So we've got one up here on the netting. That one's pretty easy to see. Another one there. Got one hanging out right there on the stem. There's another one way down at the bottom. Oh, too far. So those are the ones that I was able to confirm in the photo, but I think there's one right here on the tip of the leaf, possibly one right there, maybe there and there. So even for humans, their camouflage is very, very impressive, and it can be hard for us to spot them when they are hiding in the bramble. They're also, again, we've got a juvenile right here. We're not super spiky, but they do have spines on their body and on their legs, so that if a predator does find them, they're not going to be very pleasant to eat. This is not a bug that you really want to put in your mouth or be touching with your bare hands, especially as they get bigger, because they can be quite spiny. But their camouflage is actually not one of the most interesting adaptations. I personally think they are fascinating because these bugs can reproduce without males. So female Macleay spectre stick insects have the ability to reproduce via parthenogenesis, which is essentially cloning. So she is able to lay unfertilized eggs and then have those eggs hatch. And the babies that hatch from those eggs will always be female, and they are essentially little clones of her. So this is a super interesting adaptation that if something happens in the wild where there are no males around, or there are no suitable males, maybe she's not impressed with any of the males who are around, she can choose to reproduce by herself. So no man needed for this. So it is really, really interesting. There are lots of insects and even reptiles that can reproduce via parthenogenesis. It's not the best for maintaining genetic diversity in a population, so they will reproduce with males as well. That is going to, in general, produce healthier offspring. But if needed, these girls can lay eggs and have babies all by themselves. All right, we are going to head to Madagascar next. Madagascar is a very large island off the east coast of Africa, and it is famous for lots of interesting animals because of its island ecology. A lot of the animals got really, really specialized there. So that's why we see interesting things like lemurs and Madagascar hissing cockroaches, and the Madagascar giraffe-necked weevils. So this little dude right here, he is a very funny looking beetle. So weevils are a type of beetle. And as you can see from the photo, they look very much like their namesake. They have the long, long necks. Now, in the photo here, I always think they look bigger than they are, but they actually are tiny, tiny little insects. So if we look at our photo up here, this is a mature male perched right on the fingertip of a human. So they are teeny little insects. But they are quite fascinating. So we have a female over here on the left. They still have a pretty long neck, but not nearly as long as the males. So they are a sexually dimorphic species. So that is when the different sexes look different. Sexual dimorphism is pretty common in nature, and you'll see it in invertebrates, in mammals, in birds. So peacocks are a great example, right? The males have those big, long, flashy tails, where the female peacocks are kind of plainly colored and have much more reasonable sized tails. You'll see it in things like elk and deer, where the males may have much larger antlers than the female. And here in our little giraffe weevils, the males have much longer necks than the females. Now these necks, they actually help them with combat with other males. So just like their namesakes, they will use these long necks to fight with one another. So we have got a little bit of male competition going on as they fight for mates. Now, watching these teeny little insects fight is pretty entertaining, not gonna lie. So we're gonna head over to some footage from the BBC and see what these little guys look like when they are fussing with one another. So hopefully my video works. So we've got a male right here. He sees a rival. And there we go, right into a fight. They'll use their long necks to try and fling one another off the plants that they are on, so that they can mate with the females. And there's a little female right there. She is waiting for the dudes to get done with their fight. And she can see there, she's going through and she's prepping that plant for her to lay eggs. So she's biting little holes in the plant so that after she mates, she has a safe place to deposit her eggs. All right. So I do have a few honorable mentions. Let me see if my thing decides to let me. Apologies, technical issues. Wants me to watch the whole 3-minute video. But we are going to move on because we got other things to look at. All right. So I do have a few honorable mentions that I just wanted to go through. I could spend hours talking to y'all about fascinating bugs, but I'm assuming you don't want to sit here and listen to me. I also have a very special guest that I want to get to. So a few of the honorable mentions in the world of insects. So over here on the left, what is quite possibly the most attractive insect in the world? This is an orchid mantis. And you can see by her beautiful, beautiful colors that she looks exactly like the petals of an orchid. And this provides camouflage for her so that she can hide from potential predators, but it also allows her to hide from her prey. So she will perch herself in the petals of an orchid, blending in perfectly and waiting for flying insects to come to that flower. And then she can use those specialized limbs to just grab them and get herself a nice snack. If we move over to the right, this little guy, he's maybe not the most attractive insect. He looks kind of plain, but this is one tough bug. This is the diabolical ironclad beetle. And their carapace is actually strong enough to survive being run over by a car. And they are being studied right now on what makes their carapace so strong, on how they're able to survive that. And they're actually studying it to look into potentially like building materials, body armor, things like that. And so that we can take this amazing adaptation that they have and use it for ourselves. And then we have some of these animals in our collection right now. So if you're local, come see them in person. These are dragon-headed katydids, and I just love them because they're so silly. They get their names because of their kind of big heads, and they do have very large mandibles. But even though they look intimidating, they are harmless to humans. They eat plants. They do have kind of spiky legs, so they might not feel great crawling on your skin. But they are I love their silly little faces, their little googly eyes. They're pretty funny. They also like to sing. It's not the most attractive song as far as bug songs go. Does sound a little mechanical almost. But it is always fun when we hear the ones singing. All right, so now it is time to get to our special live guest. So this is probably my favorite bug of all time. It's kind of hard when you work at the bug zoo to narrow it down to what is your favorite bug, but it would be this dude right here, and that is the Hercules beetle. So I do have one with me, and we're gonna get him up on the camera and see if he will let us look at him. He's kind of just been snoozing this morning while I've been setting up for my program. So let's go ahead and get him on camera. And y'all are also welcome if you have any questions about anything, please drop them in the Q&A. I will happily answer anything I can. So I'll get my camera to focus here. There he is. So this is our Hercules beetle. So they are some of the largest insects in the world. And they are found in southern Mexico and Central and South America. And you can see our little dude right here. This is a male. And you can tell because of this very, very long horn he's got. So the females of the species, they are still pretty big. You can kind of see he's a little bit up under the leaves right here. We'll uncover him a little bit. You can see, and he's probably about the length of my hand. So he's a pretty big bug. They can get up to about 7 inches long, the males anyway, if we're measuring them from the tips of their horn all the way to their backs. And they can actually fly. They are flying insects, though. They're not the most graceful of flyers, so they do tend to spend most of their time exploring the forest floor. They're going to live primarily in rainforests or temperate forests. And and where they will stay and kind of live in the leaf litter and moving around in there. So these beetles, just like all beetles, undergo complete metamorphosis, which is the exact same life cycle as a butterfly. So this little guy, he started his life out as an egg, and they spend about a month in their egg stage, and then they hatch into a larva. Or if it was a butterfly, we would call it a caterpillar. And they spend the majority of their life in their larval stage. They are very, very big grubs. Again, they can get about really honestly bigger than him. And they will spend about 12 to 24 months in their larval stage. And as larvae, they will set up shop in rotting logs, in tree stumps, and eat decaying wood. So that's primarily their food while they're larvae. And then they will make their pupa or their chrysalis, and they'll stay in there for about 2 to 3 months while they undergo the transformation. So just like a butterfly, they're going to undergo that metamorphosis to go from a grub or a larva into this beautiful, beautiful beetle. And then finally, they become adults. They can live about 6 to 12 months as an adult, though a lot of our data is from captive beetles. They are kind of hard to study in the wild because even though they're big, they live in tropical rainforests, and it can be hard to go out and find them and tag them and track them. So the majority of the data that we have on their lifespans is from human-kept collections. But our little guy here, I don't know exactly how old he is. He emerged from his pupa at some point this year, so we're potentially getting a little old. But can't really judge his age by his activity level right now because these are nocturnal creatures. So during the day, I'm kind of interrupting his nap time at the moment. But when it's dark, he'll be moving around a lot more. So as adults, they like to eat decaying fruit and maybe even tree sap. He does have in here, he's got some kind of moldy looking banana. It's not a banana I would want to eat. There's his food dish right there. That is not a banana that I would want to snack on, but for him, it is perfect. So if it's just gone off, it's starting to get a little gross for him. That is perfect. All right, I'm going to pull my camera down, see if we can get a look at his face. See if he's like, what's going on? What are you doing? So come on here, let's get a peek at his little face right there. Get my camera to focus. Maybe. Yeah, so he's got little eyes, they're right there. He has very, very short antennae, and they kind of stick out from the side because, again, with this big old horn on his head, he's not going to be able to, have antenna coming out right the top of his head. So teeny tiny little head, thorax, and then again, the majority of that body is going to be his abdomen. If they kind of come down here, come over to the side, see if he'll let me look at him like that. Maybe. They're not focusing very well. You can see kind of like up under on the underside of his horn, he's got little soft hairs. Now, I'm not going to touch them. I have touched preserved specimens, and these little furry bits are so soft. But I don't think he would appreciate me touching that. It's probably very sensitive because these are sensory hairs. So they're going to help him feel things. And he's also kind of got little fuzzies up under his body as well. So the males, they do use these very large horns to fight with other males. So he will, if he was fighting with another male, to either defend his territory or potentially to find a lady friend, find a girlfriend, they will try and grasp one another in between these two jaws right here, and then they'll either slam their rival into the ground or try and fling them off the tree or the plant where they are living. So it can be a little aggressive, and they can actually harm one another. But for humans, harmless. We've got kind of some spiky legs. They're gonna help him grip onto, tree branches and whatnot. But they are completely harmless to humans. Again, he eats fruit, not gonna harm us in any way. And they're actually very, very beneficial for their rainforest ecosystems because they help with nutrient recycling. So as larvae, when they're eating all that decaying wood, they're helping recycle those nutrients back into the rainforest ecosystem and also kind of cleaning up, being part of that decomposition to help everything kind of break down. And then as adults, they're eating decaying fruits. And so, again, they're kind of just helping clean up the rainforest. They also they can provide food for other animals, though primarily in their larval form. I don't know if he'll let me touch him or not. We'll see. Yeah, he's like, nope, no, thank you, no touching. He's saying no, thank you. Um, Sorry, buddy, didn't mean to scare you. Um, but he's got a very, very hard shell. So he's got some great built-in armor. So it's going to be pretty hard to get through that hard shell. And then he can, in fact, use his jaws for defense as well if he needed to, if something was trying to mess with him and eat him. But as larvae, they do provide food for rodents, birds, mammals that like to eat insects, and even humans. Even humans will eat their beetle grubs. There's a lot of protein in one of these little guys. Um, but I think they are just some of the most incredible insects on the planet. I do love them. The way he's moved around a little bit. I'm trying to see if I can get in here, hold my hand next to him. Kind of see he's not quite the length of my hand, not quite the length of my hand, but he is a pretty big little guy. All right, folks. Well, thank you all so much for coming to the very first Invertebrate Investigations. This is something we're going to be holding monthly. And so if you are interested, the next one will be on August 14th. Registration is not quite open, but I should have that open for you early next week. And next month, we are going to be talking about baby bugs. So we might even look at some baby pictures of our Hercules beetle right here. So we'll be kind of diving into a little more on life cycles of both insects. We're also going to look at arachnids and crustaceans. And then we'll get to see some of the baby bugs that call Butterfly Pavilion home. Also, if you are interested, check out our website. We do offer paid virtual programming as well. So if you're a teacher or have a youth group, scout group, anything like that, and would like Butterfly Pavilion to come to you virtually, we can do that. Our website is butterflies.org, and you can check out our education page for more information about that. We are also, for any local folks online, we do offer outreaches, so we can come to you. My Hercules beetle right here, he is not permitted to leave the building, but we can bring other bugs to you, such as spiders, cockroaches, whatnot. Or we can just come bug-free and talk to you about butterflies. And we also have field trips as well. So if you're local and want to bring your school group or youth group or whatever you've got, you can also do that. So thank you all so much again for logging on, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for coming out and investigating these interesting insects with me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.